My sister's husband tried to frame me for something I didn't do, and my whole family almost believed him. Families love to pretend they're simple, mine especially. We're a Midwestern clan with a group chat called Fam Bam, my mom's invention, a tradition of overcooking the Thanksgiving turkey, and a carefully curated belief that we don't do drama, which is adorable because we do. We're just polite about it. I'm the younger sibling by 3 years. My sister Hannah is the type of person teachers use as a benchmark for the rest of the class. Responsible, steady, the one who had a 5-year plan and somehow checked each item off with a neat little flourish. I've always been the circling satellite to her little planet creative detours, lateral moves, a resume that reads like a buffet line, retail, design gigs, video editing, copywriting. My parents explained our differences to friends with the same practiced chuckle. They took after different sides of the family. Translation: one of us is predictable, the other is a walking curveball. Hannah married Ryan 4 years ago. At first, he felt like a safe pair of shoes. Normal, fine, reliable. The kind of guy who calls a 5K a race, has an opinion on lawn fertilizer, and uses phrases like circle back in regular conversation. He works in sales for a regional supply company and is always crushing Q3, which I think is just code for sending 1,000 emails and taking clients to golf courses where all the carts look like rental cars. If you asked me for my first red flag with Ryan, I'd say it wasn't a flag, it was a frequency. Something faint but constant, like a hum you can't find the source of. He was nice, always, but it was a particular flavor of nice. Generous when there was an audience, helpful if there was a ledger. He'd pick up the dinner tab and then mention it 3 times the next month. He brought extravagant gifts to birthdays and then gave long toasts about family values that sounded like he'd practiced in the rearview mirror. Hannah glowed around him, at least at first. She liked the predictability, the neatness of it all. A shared calendar, a mortgage, date nights blocked on Fridays. If I'm honest, I liked it for her too. After a string of artsy boyfriends who treated commitment like a caffeine allergy, there was comfort in Ryan's spreadsheet energy. But cracks have a way of whispering to you before they shout. The first whisper, at Christmas 2 years ago. We were playing that dumb present-stealing game, White Elephant, Yankee Swap, whatever your family calls it. Ryan unwrapped a set of noise-canceling headphones and made a big show of acting like he didn't care. Then maneuvered so Hannah would accidentally steal them from me instead of him. And then he traded back with her at the end, so he'd walk away with them. It was small, petty even, but the way he performed nonchalance while orchestrating the outcome gave me that faint hum again. The second whisper, Mom's birthday last spring. We all chipped in for a restaurant reservation she dreamed about for years. Ryan paid the deposit, which was thoughtful, and then sent the whole family a detailed Venmo request with a note that read, PLS include 3.5 processing fee. It wasn't the money, it was the optics. Generosity as a receipt. Still, I told myself I was being uncharitable. People aren't red flags. They're walking Venn diagrams of insecurity and habit. Besides, Hannah looked happy in photos. Their house smelled like laundry detergent commercials. Who was I to pick at seams? Fast forward to this past Thanksgiving. My parents rotate hosting duties, but this year they went full Pinterest. Table runners, name cards, those tiny pumpkins that exist solely to make you feel like your house has an Instagram. The plan was classic. Dinner at 4, football ambush at 6, board game detente at 8, passive-aggressive pie by 9. I showed up early to help, wearing the apron my grandmother embroidered. Crookedly, back when aprons were love languages. Hannah and Ryan arrived with a casserole and 2 bottles of wine from a friend's boutique vineyard, which Ryan said like a sentence with capital letters. He hugged me too long, the way he does, like he's auditioning for a role called Good Brother-in-Law. During prep, the kitchen was its usual holiday chaos. Mom narrating her every move like a cooking show no one asked for. Dad trying to baste things that did not require basting. Me assigned to, just stir this please, which is my mother's way of saying, stay in your lane. Hannah perched on a stool, scrolling a recipe for brown butter something, and Ryan stationed himself near the wine like a brand ambassador, uncorking, pouring, complimenting his own pour. The hum kicked up when he started telling a story about a coworker who'd borrowed a company gift card and forgotten to return it. It's crazy what people think they can get away with, he said, laughing, then glanced at me like he was checking my reaction. I gave him nothing, just stirred my pot like it owed me money. Still, the look stuck. We did the performative stuff. Grace, compliments, the annual toast from Dad about another year under our belts. Like we're all leather. Hannah squeezed my hand under the table, and I squeezed back. A Morse code reminder that we survived childhood together, and nothing can make that untrue. You know how family dinners have beats? There's the opening banter, the story volley, the quiet savoring interlude, the first real argument threat that someone diffuses with a joke. Our argument thread arrived when Ryan launched into a mini lecture about financial wellness after Mom said she was thinking of splurging on a weekend trip. Experiences are great, he said, but you really need to ensure your emergency fund is stable. He said it gently, but it still sounded like a PowerPoint. Mom smiled tightly. Hannah kicked him under the table. I saw it, she meant it. And he pulled back like a cat who touched a lemon. After dinner, we migrated to the living room for football we don't watch, and pie we pretend is too much before eating anyway. I was in the kitchen loading plates when Ryan sidled in and leaned against the counter, like a man about to deliver feedback. You still doing freelance? He asked, too casual. Yep, I said, and 2 steady clients. Keeps the lights on. He nodded like a boss in a sitcom. Just be careful. It's easy to get behind. People notice. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Who notices, Ryan? The freelance police? He smiled slow. Family. It wasn't the words, it was the weight he hung on them. Like family was a force he could wield. The hum turned sharper. I plated the pumpkin pie like it had personally offended me and went back to the others before I said something that would start a holiday war. Besides, it was almost time for my mother's annual after-dinner ritual. The show and tell. She does it every year, brings out something sentimental, retells the story like we weren't there, makes everyone swear to keep it in the family, with a pointed look at whichever cousin is dating someone new. This year's item was actually special, my grandmother's bracelet. Not fancy, but old and delicate, and very her-thin gold, tiny clasp, 3 little charms that jingle when you move. A book, a teacup, a tiny bell. My grandmother wore it every Sunday until her hands got too swollen. When she died, Mom tucked it away and took it out for weddings and births like a blessing. Mom passed it around, we all oohed appropriately, and then she set it back in the little velvet box and placed the box on the mantle, as if proximity to the family photos would keep it safe. We'll put it away after dessert, she said. I just like seeing it out. You don't need foreshadowing spelled out, right? We did pie, we did decaf, we did the part where Dad insists we keep the TV on even though no one's watching. Around 9, my aunt called from out of state, and Mom drifted to the dining room to take it, because she whispers loudly and thinks we won't hear. I stacked plates. Hannah and I bickered about whether the dishwasher can handle actual pots. It can, Ryan, it can. Ryan wandered between rooms like a security guard doing rounds. At some point, the living room got weirdly quiet. I turned and saw Ryan standing by the mantel, staring down at the velvet box like it had spoken. He didn't touch it, at least not then, but he had that look again, the performance face. I filed it away, the way you do when a detail pings something in your lizard brain. 10 minutes later, Mom finished her call and went to put the bracelet away. The velvet box was there. The bracelet wasn't. Silence. Then the kind of rustling you only hear when a dozen people suddenly stop pretending they're relaxed. Mom checked the coffee table, the sideboard, the box itself, as if it could have Houdini'd into a corner. I set it right here, she said, voice too calm. Right here. Dad stood, blinking like a man trying to locate his glasses. Hannah moved to Mom's side. Ryan put his hands up in this theatrical gesture I've only ever seen in true crime reenactments. Let's not panic, he said, which is what you say when panic is what you want. We checked everywhere. Under the sofa cushion, inside the napkin holder. Don't ask. Even the trash, because people on the internet say things get swept. Nothing. The bracelet was gone, and with it, a layer of family innocence I didn't know we were still wearing. I wish I could say I felt a thunderclap of intuition in that moment. I didn't. I felt stupid guilt like somehow I should have watched the mantle with my body. I felt crushed for my mom, who touched the empty velvet like it was a wound. I felt the hum pitch up to a siren I tried to pretend I couldn't hear, and then Ryan cleared his throat, and the siren turned into words. Maybe, he said carefully, eyes scanning faces like a survey taker, it accidentally got moved. Or maybe someone thought they'd hold on to it for safekeeping? He let the phrase hang in the air like fog. No one looked at me yet. Not yet. But I felt the air shift, just slightly like a room tilting. And somewhere deep in my gut, a door I didn't know existed creaked open. I should have known then what was coming. But families love simplicity. We prefer a misplacement to a theft, an accident to an accusation. We choose the explanation that lets us finish the dishes and go home feeling normal. We didn't get normal that night. We got Ryan. And when my mom's eyes finally drifted to me, just a flicker, soft and apologetic, like she hated herself for the thought. I realized we'd already crossed into something we couldn't walk back from. The thing about a moment that changes everything is that it rarely feels cinematic while it's happening. No thunder, no orchestral swell, just the same room you've always known, and a silence that starts to taste wrong in your mouth. Mom kept fussing with the empty box, checking it again like the bracelet might materialize if she were gentle enough. Hannah hovered, torn between comforting and trying not to look terrified. Dad went into logistical mode, muttering about retracing steps and inventorying trash. And Ryan, of course, took charge. He started with reason. Let's all just check around where we were sitting. It's probably fallen somewhere. But his voice had a practiced calm, the kind you use when you've already decided what story you want to tell. We all did the search dance, lifted cushions, checked under end tables, peeked behind photo frames. Everyone murmured reassurances that sounded like questions. No one found a thing. My mom's hands started to tremble. You could see the grief building behind her eyes. That bracelet wasn't expensive, but it was history you could hold. Losing it was like losing one more thread to my grandmother. Ryan did this sigh, soft and almost sad. You know, he said, I did see the box open earlier. Maybe one of the kids. There were no kids. He knew that. Or maybe someone just moved it absent-mindedly. I was standing by the doorway with a glass in my hand. We all walked past it a dozen times, I said. No one touched it. He smiled like he wanted to agree with me, but couldn't quite get there. Yeah, probably not. Still, we should check pockets, right? Just to rule it out? It wasn't what he said. It was the way he let his eyes land on me as the words dropped. It was tiny, a flicker, but it was there. A beat too long, a look that said, let's pretend this is a fair suggestion. Everyone went still. Mom blinked, confused. Hannah's head jerked toward him, then to me. Dad frowned. And me? I just laughed. A small, shocked sound that broke the air like a glass crack. You're kidding, right? Ryan put up his hands, palms out. Hey, no offense meant. I just think we should be thorough. You were cleaning up around there, right? Totally normal to pick something up by accident. My face went hot. I wanted to say a dozen things, none polite. Hannah stepped in first, her voice brittle. Ryan, stop. That's ridiculous. But the suggestion had already done its work. It had put a shadow where there wasn't one. People don't unhear that kind of thing. My mom was shaking her head, murmuring, of course not. But her eyes flicked between us, uncertain. Dad's lips moved like he was chewing on logic. No one asked to check my pockets, but I could feel the room holding its breath anyway. Ryan smiled, almost sheepish. You're right. Probably dumb idea. Let's just look again. We looked again. We didn't find it. An hour later, the family decided it had to be misplaced. That was the official word. We'll all check our bags when we get home, my mom said. Her voice was trying to be firm, but her fingers were still shaking. Hannah said she'd come over in the morning to help. Everyone tried to act like the evening wasn't poisoned. They hugged me at the door. I could feel the hesitation in their arms. Ryan hugged me last. He held on too long, his breath close to my ear. Don't take it personal, he murmured. Tension makes people weird. I pulled back. You made them weird. He just smiled and went to the car. The next day, I got the text from my mom. Still no bracelet. We'll let you know if it turns up. No accusations, but no absolution either. Hannah sent nothing, not even a check-in. By Monday, I was trying to bury it in work. Then Hannah called. Her voice was tight, brittle. Can you come over? Please. When I got there, Ryan was already in the kitchen. He was holding something between his fingers, a small gold charm shaped like a bell, the exact kind that hung from my grandmother's bracelet. He laid it on the counter like a piece of evidence. Found this in our car. For a second, everything went slow, syrupy. Hannah's face was pale. In the back seat, she said. On the floor. You were sitting there Thursday. I stared at the charm, then at them. You think I stole it and then just dropped part of it in your car? Ryan's expression was all sympathy. Accidents happen. Maybe you picked it up without realizing. People do things under stress. Are you hearing yourself? I said. Why would I take Mom's bracelet? Hannah looked at the floor. I don't know. I just know it was there. That hurt worse than anger. It was disbelief wearing her face. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and make her remember that I was her brother, not some stranger off the street. But Ryan stood next to her, one hand on her shoulder, the perfect image of patient concern. And I saw the shape of the story he'd been building since Thursday. Not outright accusation, just enough suggestion to make doubt bloom. I didn't take it, I said. You know me. Hannah's eyes filled. I want to believe you. That was the moment I realized belief and love aren't the same thing. You can love someone and still let them twist in the wind if it keeps the peace. I left. Didn't slam the door, didn't shout, just walked out into the cold and sat in my car with my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. That night, the family chat lit up. Messages in the gentle tone people use when they're afraid of confrontation. Maybe you just picked it up without noticing? Things happen. We all make mistakes. Nobody said thief. They didn't have to. The next morning, my mom called to say she'd filed a police report. Just in case, she said. Her voice was soft, apologetic. She still thought she was being fair. They might need to ask everyone a few questions. Everyone, but we both knew she meant me. I spent that week feeling like I was walking through fog. Work calls blurred. Food tasted like cardboard. Every vibration from my phone made my chest tighten. I half expected a knock at my door. I thought about deleting everything, changing my number, vanishing just to make them see what they lost. Instead, I stayed, because I knew what it looked like when guilty people run, and I wasn't going to give Ryan that satisfaction. On Friday, Hannah texted, "They found the bracelet." For a second, relief flooded me. Then the second message came. "Ryan found it. It was in one of your old coat pockets in the hall closet. Mom says we can just put this behind us now." I read it twice, then a third time. Old coat, hall closet, at my parents' house where everyone hangs their coats when they come over. But the coat she meant, the one I'd worn last winter, had been in a storage box in the basement for months. I hadn't touched it, and if the bracelet was really there, then someone put it there. Someone like Ryan, who'd arrived early on Thanksgiving. Someone who'd walked through that hallway a dozen times before dinner. Someone who had a reason to shift the blame before the story could turn on him. I stared at that text until my eyes hurt. Then I typed one word. No, I didn't send it, because I needed proof. And if he'd gone to the trouble of setting me up, there had to be a reason bigger than pettiness. Something he didn't want anyone to see. So I charged my phone, opened a new notes file, and started writing everything down. Dates, phrases, glances. The little moments I brushed off as nothing. The pattern was starting to emerge, faint but undeniable. Ryan hadn't just framed me. He was hiding something, and he thought I was the easiest person to bury beneath it. There's a peculiar kind of quiet that follows public humiliation. It's not silence. It's the low, polite hum of people trying not to talk about you too loudly. My phone stayed stubbornly blank for days. The family group chat that used to buzz with memes and logistics turned into a graveyard of half-finished sentences. Hannah stopped liking my posts. Mom's good morning text disappeared. I could feel the distance growing, one unread message at a time. It's funny how quickly a person can be redefined. For 30 years, I was the reliable younger sibling, the family's built-in tech support, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays. Now I was the one who had that weird thing happen. You could hear the capital letters when people said it. Work was my refuge, even though focus was a ghost I couldn't catch. Every email I sent, every edit I made felt like trying to stitch my own skin back together. And yet, under the ache, something sharper was starting to build. A need to know why. Not just why Ryan did it. I already knew he didn't like me. But why now? Why this level of cruelty? Framing someone isn't a reflex, it's strategy. The first clue came from my mother, unintentionally. She called one evening, voice trembling with forced brightness. "Good news, sweetheart," she said. "The bracelet's back with me." Ryan cleaned it and everything. So thoughtful. That word cleaned hit me like static. Who cleans evidence? I asked if she was sure it was fine. She said, "Oh yes, he even tightened the clasp. Said he noticed it was a little loose." That wasn't generosity, that was tampering. If he'd been careless enough to tighten the clasp, maybe he'd left fingerprints. Maybe he'd touched it too much. It was a thread and I wanted to pull. I spent the next few evenings replaying Thanksgiving in my head. The timeline, the positioning, the way Ryan moved around the room. He'd stood near the mantel when we were all still finishing dessert. He'd left his jacket in the hall. He'd made the suggestion to check pockets. All tiny details, nothing that would matter to anyone else. But together they built a map of intention. I started visiting my parents more, under the guise of checking on Mom. I'd help with dishes, chat about the weather, and watch her face when Ryan's name came up. She was trying to forget, to paper over the mess. Denial is self-care. I didn't blame her. But Hannah's voice over speakerphone during those visits was a different story. Distant, flat. The way someone sounds when they're protecting a wound they can't show you. Then there was the moment with the mail. I was there when a thick envelope arrived addressed to my dad. He wasn't home, so Mom left it on the counter. It had a return address from a local credit union. I didn't open it. I'm not a monster. But I saw the word loan stamped through the envelope window. My dad later said it was for Ryan and Hannah's house. Some refinancing thing, he said. You know how expensive everything is these days. Expensive. The word lodged somewhere deep. I remembered Hannah mentioning they were tight a few months ago, that Ryan had some delays with commissions. Maybe this was about money. Maybe he needed a distraction before someone noticed missing funds. When you start to suspect someone, you start to see patterns everywhere. The time Ryan mentioned a client trip to Vegas but came back oddly tense. The small fights he and Hannah had when they thought no one could hear. The way he flinched whenever anyone mentioned taxes. I decided to talk to Hannah directly. I knew it would go badly, but I couldn't keep guessing. She met me at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments, the kind with rustic tables and good lighting for apologies. She looked tired. Her hair was up in a messy knot, dark circles smudged under her eyes. When she saw me, her smile didn't reach them. I didn't waste time. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest," she said. "Did you ever see Ryan with the bracelet before he found it?" Her fingers tightened around her cup. "No," she said, too fast. "Hannah." I said no. I took a breath. "I think he planted it. I think he framed me because he's covering something up." She laughed, small and brittle. "You sound crazy." "Do I? You know him better than anyone. You've seen how he acts when he wants to win. This isn't about the bracelet, it's about control. You know that?" Her eyes filled, and for a heartbeat I saw belief flicker through her anger. Then she blinked it away. "He wouldn't do that. He's been under pressure at work, okay? You're making things worse." "Pressure how?" She hesitated. "It's none of your business." And that was my confirmation. If she was protecting his stress, it was because she was protecting something bigger. Debt, lies, maybe worse. We left on bad terms. I walked out into the cold, angry at myself for thinking I could reason with love that had already decided who it believed. The call came a week later, from my father. His voice was low, conspiratorial. "You should probably know before it hits the grapevine," he said. "Ryan's company's being audited, some discrepancies in accounts." There it was, the missing puzzle piece clicking into place. Ryan had been stealing, or shifting numbers. And Thanksgiving, the bracelet, the sudden accusation. It had been his preemptive defense, a story ready to pull out if anyone accused him of dishonesty. See? Even her brother's sketchy. They have that kind of family. It made sense. Too much sense. I told Dad what I thought. He didn't want to hear it. "Let's not speculate," he said, the family motto. But speculation had already become survival. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone, thumb hovering over Hannah's contact. I didn't call. I started collecting instead. Screenshots of his LinkedIn brag posts, public records, anything that tied his name to the audit. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it, but evidence felt like armor. The next Sunday, Mom called again, her voice small. "I think you should come over for dinner," she said. "It's time we all talked." Dinner. The word felt heavy. I almost said no, but curiosity is a vicious thing. So I went. They were all there. Mom, Dad, Hannah, and Ryan. The air was tense, polite, the way families get when everyone's pretending they're fine. Ryan greeted me like we were old friends, clapped my shoulder, poured me a drink. Hannah avoided my eyes. We sat, ate, made small talk. I waited for the punchline, the "let's clear the air." It didn't come. What came was worse. Ryan raised his glass halfway through dessert. "I just want to say," he said, "that I'm glad we can move forward. Family means forgiveness, right?" Everyone murmured agreement. I stayed quiet. He turned to me, that same patient smile. "No hard feelings?" It was an ambush designed to make me complicit in my own erasure. Say yes, smile, and the record stands. You were guilty, forgiven, case closed. I met his eyes. "Sure," I said. "No hard feelings." Then I leaned in slightly, voice low enough that only he and Hannah could hear. "By the way, I hear auditors don't like hard feelings either." He froze. Just a flicker, but I saw it. The exact moment panic cracked through his mask. Hannah's fork clinked against her plate. Dad looked up, confused. Mom asked what I'd said. I smiled. "Just thanking Ryan for dessert." It was the smallest victory, but it was mine. That night I started making a plan. If the audit turned up what I thought it would, the truth would eventually leak. But I didn't want eventually. I wanted Hannah to see it before he could spin another story. I wanted the whole family to understand what kind of man they'd invited to carve turkey and rewrite history. And I wanted to do it in a way he couldn't control. The thing about making a plan against family is that you start by lying to yourself. You tell yourself it's for justice, or closure, or truth. You pretend it's noble, but deep down there's another voice whispering, you just want them to feel what you felt. That mix of shame and disbelief and cold fury that crawls up your spine when people you love start doubting who you are. I wanted Ryan to feel it. After that dinner, I started waking up earlier, like my body had decided sleep was for people who weren't plotting quiet revenge. The audit was my entry point, but I didn't know how much was rumor and how much was real. I started digging the way you dig when you know there's rot somewhere under the floorboards. Quiet, patient, a little scared of what you'll find. I started small. Google searches, LinkedIn, public records. Ryan wasn't a particularly private person online. His whole personality was built on performance. He had a curated digital life, success stories, vacation photos with captions like "grind pays off," client selfies on golf courses. Buried between those posts were subtle signs of strain. The same vacation tagged 3 different ways to make it look like 3 trips. Long gaps between achievement updates, comments under a picture of a new car, people asking, "Didn't you just get a different one?" I started cross-checking company filings, not because I knew what I was doing, but because I knew how to read patterns. He worked for a mid-sized supplier that handled construction materials. A few local news articles mentioned they'd landed contracts with municipal projects. I looked up public bid records, and there he was, listed as the point of contact for several. Then, one note in an industry forum about invoice irregularities on a city job that had delayed payment. That was smoke. I needed fire. It came unexpectedly from Mike, a guy I'd met years ago at one of Hannah's BBQs. He worked in logistics. We followed each other on social media out of obligation. I saw him comment on one of Ryan's posts, something cryptic. Bet the auditors love you, LOL. I messaged him privately. Hey, random question. What's that about? He took his time answering, but when he did, it was short. Nothing crazy, man. Just heard stuff. You know he's under review, right? Company-wide audit. Word is some expense reports don't add up. I asked if he knew details. He said just rumors. But the kind of rumors that start with emails, spreadsheets, people whispering in break rooms. That night, I sat with my laptop glowing on the table, adrenaline making my hands shake. I wasn't imagining things. Ryan wasn't just unpleasant. He was dangerous. And his whole act, the charm, the deflections, the frame job, all of it was insurance. If someone traced those missing dollars back to him, he'd need a story to explain why his reputation was crumbling. Better to have a family scandal already simmering, something to point at when people asked, why would anyone lie about you? I started watching him differently. He'd call my mom sometimes when Hannah was busy. Check in, act attentive. He brought groceries, mowed their lawn, played the role of model son-in-law. He was rebuilding the narrative while I was dismantling it piece by piece. I started visiting too, at random hours. Helped dad in the garage, helped mom in the garden. Every time I scanned for something out of place, receipts, mail, notes. It took 2 weeks before I found anything. It was a folded statement tucked under the edge of a magazine on their hall table. Ryan's name on the top, credit account balance near the bottom. 5 figures. Minimum payment missed. The kind of balance you don't rack up by accident. I took a photo of it on my phone and put it back exactly where I found it. I didn't want to blindside her, but I didn't trust her to hear it yet. Love makes people stupid. I knew because I'd been that stupid before. So I waited until she reached out. It happened late on a Tuesday. Text message. Can we talk? Just us? We met in her car outside a coffee shop, neutral ground. She looked worse than before. Shoulders tense, eyes darting like she was expecting someone to see us. I shouldn't be here, she said first. Then why are you? Because I don't know who to believe anymore. That cracked me open a little. Believe what? She hesitated, then said, he says you're trying to ruin him, that you're obsessed. I laughed. Does that sound like me? Her lip trembled. It sounds like something he'd say if he was scared. That was something, a tiny fissure in his armor. I told her about the audit, the debts, the credit statement. I didn't accuse, just laid facts down like cards. I showed her the photo. She stared at it too long. Finally, she whispered, he said he had everything handled. Handled how? By making me the family thief? She didn't answer. She just started crying quietly, shaking her head. When I reached for her hand, she let me just for a second. Then she pulled away. I need to go, she said. Don't tell him we talked. After that meeting, I started planning. If he was still lying to her, he'd eventually lie to someone else. People like him always do. They believe in their own cleverness until it becomes a reflex. I needed him to trip over it. I didn't have money for private investigators or lawyers. What I had was persistence. I started feeding little bits of information to the family group chat. Casual mentions like, crazy how audits work. They look at everything, right? Or I read that companies have to report discrepancies to state agencies now. Every message was bait. I wanted him to know I knew, to make him nervous enough to make a mistake. It worked faster than I expected. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Stop spreading lies. You have no idea what you're getting into. No name, but I didn't need one. I replied, meet me then. Prove me wrong. He didn't. But the next day, Hannah called crying. He found something, she said. He says it's proof you're the one who's been lying. What kind of proof? He showed me emails from your account. My stomach dropped. Emails about what? About money, transfers. He'd forged them. Of course he had. If he could plant a bracelet, he could fake a screenshot. He was trying to get ahead of me again. I told her to send them to me. She refused, said she was scared. That's when I realized how deep he'd sunk his claws. He wasn't just lying to protect himself anymore. He was rewriting reality around her, brick by brick. But paranoia breeds mistakes. That weekend, Dad mentioned something strange. Ryan came by to fix the Wi-Fi, he said. Said the router logs looked weird, that someone was using too much data. My blood ran cold. When was that? Friday afternoon. Why? He was covering his tracks, deleting traces of whatever he'd sent or forged. But in his need to control the story, he'd left fingerprints. Literally, because my father's router had cloud backup. I logged in that night from my laptop, guessing the password. Dad never changes them. Thank God. There it was, device log, Ryan's phone MAC address connecting multiple times, file transfer entries, timestamps matching the supposed email dates. I took screenshots, all of it, saved copies, backups, offsite storage. For once, technology was on my side. I didn't go to the police, not yet. I went to Hannah. I sent her the router logs, the timestamps, everything. No commentary, just data. It took her 20 minutes to reply. I need to see you. We met at a park. She looked hollow, like someone who hadn't eaten or slept. I asked him about it, she said. He said you hacked it. Of course he did. She nodded slowly. Then he said I needed to choose. Did you? She looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw my sister again. Not the careful wife, not the PR manager for his reputation, just Hannah. I don't know yet, she said, but I'm not deleting your messages this time. That was enough, for now. I walked away from that meeting shaking, not with fear, but with adrenaline. The truth was a living thing now, crawling out from under the floorboards. I just had to keep feeding it light. It didn't unravel all at once. Families like ours never explode. They implode in slow motion. One awkward dinner, one whispered phone call, one unreturned text at a time. The weekend after Hannah and I met in the park, everything felt eerily calm. My mother texted me pictures of her garden. My dad asked if I could help him with his truck. Hannah went silent again. And Ryan? He played dead. No texts, no calls, no sudden appearances. That silence was his tell. Predators stop thrashing when they think the trap is ready to close. By Monday, I knew something was coming. The hum I'd learned to live with was back in full force. I kept my phone charged, laptop open, screenshots backed up in 3 different folders. I even printed hard copies because movies had taught me that the internet always dies at the wrong moment. When the call came, it was my mom. We're all having dinner again, she said. I think it's time to move on. Ryan wants to clear the air. There it was, his stage. He was going to try one last act. I drove over in a fog of anger and caffeine. The same house, same smells, same table. My parents sat close, wearing the strained smiles of people determined to pretend it's still Thanksgiving. Hannah was pale but steady. Ryan looked tan, rested and smug, like a man who just convinced himself he was innocent. He greeted me like nothing had happened. Glad you came, man, he said. We should put all this behind us. Sure, I said. Let's do that. He waited until everyone was seated before launching into his performance. I've been doing some thinking, he said. Families shouldn't let misunderstandings destroy trust. I may have reacted too strongly about certain things. He looked at me, all warm contrition. And I accept your apology. It took me a beat to realize what he'd done. He'd rewritten the script mid-scene. In his version, I'd confessed, apologized, and been forgiven. The lie was so bold it almost stunned me into silence. Mom smiled, relieved. That's wonderful, she said. I'm so glad. I cut her off. That's not what happened. Ryan's smile froze. Excuse me? I didn't apologize because I didn't lie. And you didn't come here to make peace. You came to make sure your story stuck. He laughed, low and patronizing. You really can't let this go, can you? I reached into my bag. No, I said, because I like receipts. I slid printed pages across the table. Router logs, timestamps, his device ID. My father frowned, leaning closer. What is this? The proof, I said, that Ryan accessed your Wi-Fi multiple times on the day he claimed I sent fake emails from my account. That's when he was planting them. Ryan's face shifted, just a flicker, but enough. Then he leaned back and scoffed. This is insane. Anyone can fake that. Sure, I said, but you didn't stop there, did you? I handed over the credit statement, the one with his name and the balance that looked like a mortgage. You've been in debt for months. The audit at your company? They're not looking at me. They're looking at you. Hannah's breath caught. What audit? Ryan turned to her, too fast. Honey, it's nothing, just routine. It's not nothing, I said. It's fraud, and you needed a distraction, someone you could make look untrustworthy before it all came down. He stood abruptly, the chair legs screeching against the tile. You have no idea what you're talking about. Mom's voice was small. Ryan, sit down. He didn't. He turned on me, eyes bright with that manic confidence of someone who's cornered, but still thinks he can charm his way out. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You've been jealous since the day we met. You never had your life together, and now you're trying to drag me down because your sister chose me. I said nothing, just looked at Hannah. She was staring at the papers in her hands, the printed lines of numbers and times, the fragments of truth she'd been avoiding for months. She looked up at him, voice barely above a whisper. Is it true? Ryan's jaw tightened. Don't listen to him. Is it true? He hesitated, and that was all it took. My mother gasped. My father leaned back, silent. Hannah pushed the papers away like they were burning her fingers. Get out, she said. He blinked. What? You heard me. Get out. He tried one more smile, a desperate one. Babe, get out of my parents' house, she said louder this time. Now. The silence that followed was the kind you can feel in your bones. He stood there for a long second, staring at her like she'd broken character in his play. Then he grabbed his jacket and stormed out, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the picture frames. No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and my mother's quiet sobbing. Finally, my dad stood and started clearing plates like that could somehow fix the room. Hannah stayed sitting, staring at nothing. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know how. Everything that could be said had already happened in the silence between us. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. They'll find out, won't they? His job. Yeah, I said. They will. She nodded slowly, wiped her eyes. Good. That was it. No apologies, no grand reconciliation. Just two siblings sitting in the ruins of a story we'd both been living too long. The audit became public 2 weeks later. Local news, small headline. Regional sales rep accused of embezzlement, under investigation. It didn't name him, but everyone who needed to know, knew. Hannah moved out a month after that. My parents pretended it was temporary. She stayed quiet through the separation, focusing on her new job, her new apartment, her new habit of answering my texts again. As for Ryan, he tried one last stunt. Emails to family members claiming I'd hacked him. By then, no one was listening. The company fired him quietly. Rumor was he left town. I didn't care where. Families survive worse things than lies, but they never go back to what they were before. My mom still flinches when sentimental things get mentioned, like she's afraid of losing another heirloom to bad faith. My dad pretends everything's fine by fixing things that don't need fixing. Hannah and I talk more, but there's a cautiousness between us now, a reminder that love needs truth to stand upright. Sometimes I wonder when Ryan decided to make me his scapegoat. Was it the moment he realized the audit was real? The night before Thanksgiving? Maybe even earlier, when he looked at me and saw someone he could discredit before they ever noticed what he was hiding? It doesn't matter now. What matters is that the noise is gone. That low hum of doubt that used to follow me everywhere has faded. The house is quiet again, in a way that feels earned.